I'm Jeffrey Ryan Morales, and I am a story executive at the ISA. I also oversee all of our submissions. I oversee our reading team. My favorite movie is actually Forrest Gump, and I've really loved that movie since I saw it as a kid. And it's one of those movies where you keep going back to it every few years as you get older and older and older, and you find different things about life and what that movie is saying about passage of time. And I also just love it as a vision of a particular generation's journey. My favorite TV show, funny enough, is The Sopranos, and I have the exact same feelings of this snapshot of where people were at the time and how they evolved. Right now, I just finished Picard, season 3, which I loved, and I've already rewatched twice because the way that show ends is a love letter to Star Trek, which is one of the things that got me into writing in general. And I'm getting ready to watch Barry. I'm behind, but I absolutely love that show. And that second season is already something that I use very often with writers. You look at how this is written, look at how this is structured. It's a masterpiece. One of my favorite, I'm going to pick an odd one and stay with Star Trek, actually, is Ron D. Moore. He did, for those who don't know, he started on Star Trek. He worked on Star Trek Deep Space Nine in the 90s, and then he went on and he created Battlestar Galactica, the remake, that is. And what's so great about that is when he was doing that remake, he did an audio commentary that week for every episode. And it really endeared me to him because it was like I had this private tutor on how to write television and insights into the production process. And he's gone on now. He's working on For All Mankind. So he's one of my favorites. I got into screenwriting fairly young. I think I was 10 or 11 years old. I was a homeschooled kid, and so that meant I had a lot of time to hang out with my action figures. And I loved Transformers, and I knew that there was the Transformers toys, and then there was a show. And I was interested in this idea of, well, someone is telling stories, and how are they telling stories with these things that I care about? And so I learned about what a script was, and I wound up writing scripts for the action figures. I would, instead of just playing with the toys, I would week after week refine what they were doing and just create screenplays for them. And I just stayed interested in that format decades on from there. All the way into college when I was taking a screenwriting course and somebody said, well, if you're actually interested in doing this for a living, contact me at the end of the semester as a professor. And he said, I'll get you an internship at Sammy Golden Films. And so I showed up at the end of that semester, said I'm interested, and that's how I broke in. I do remember I went to a fairly competitive boarding school, and we had to apply. You had to take some tests and write an essay. And my essay was about writing and the appeal of writing and how dynamic it was. And I think that was the moment where my parents realized there was some sort of underlying substance to this. It wasn't simply me going, I'd like to be a writer and, be rich and famous and all that. And instead, the fact that I was able to write something that had impressed these people who were not really film people. They were interested in individuals who had sort of an intellectual drive at a young age. That's when they kind of started to get on board. And I think it also helped that by the time I got into college, I was starting to shift into criticism and being a critic more, which I think was just easier for them to grasp. Of, oh, okay, he just likes complaining about stuff. Okay, we understand that. Whenever anyone asks me, did your career go as planned? I usually start with, well, I graduated in 2009, which was mistake number 1. So by the time I was getting out of college, I'd already done 2 internships at development, and I'd worked at a TV station over in Trinidad. And so I was fairly comfortable feeling that, okay, I'm not someone who's going to sit in a cabin in the woods and write scripts. I was more interested in development, criticism, and things around writing. And so my plan was, I'd spoken to someone in development. I said, okay, well, after I graduated, I'll come to LA from Connecticut, where my college was, and you could help me get a job. That'd be great. He said, oh, absolutely. So 2009 happens. The economy's in not great shape. But I still get in my car and drive over to LA, and I call him up. He goes, "Oh, I didn't think you'd actually show up." And because of the recession, he was looking for a job. So I was kind of locked out of development, and I started doing production. And the way I got that job, or my first job in production, was also weird because a friend of mine who went to the same college, who happened to be in LA at the time, who was not in the film industry, said, "Hey, Jeff, I know that you're looking for a job in the film industry. Well, I know this guy who is in the film industry and he's looking to hire somebody. But the thing is, I can't just introduce you to him. I think you need to get to know him." I said, "Okay, well, how do I get to know him?" He goes, "Well, he's an instructor at an archery range. So if you could just learn archery for a few months to become his friend, and then we can get you the job." And that's what I did. Is I learned how to shoot a bow and arrow. And so I worked production there. And then, if you're not interested in production, it's not for you. So I left the industry and I was out for several years. Um, but I got back into it again in a weird way. Uh, Also, an embarrassing way is I'd gone to a screenplay pitch festival back in college. And as part of the prize, they said, "Oh, well, here are some online pitches you can send to people." And I thought, well, these are useful, so I'm never going to use them. But I found out when I wasn't in the industry anymore that I still had these pitches. So I said, okay, I'm just going to send these because I don't even want to know that I have an account or anything. So I type up a pitch of a script that doesn't exist. And I just said, "Oh yeah, it's set on a train. Trains in the future, goes around. It's one train, goes around the whole planet, the whole thing, big train. Maybe there's like a Lovecraft demon, something. I don't know. Maybe that's from the moon. Yeah, train could go to the moon. I don't know how. Whatever. You figure it out." And just type that nonsense up and send it to a producer. And of course, the producer sends it back to me saying, "This is the funniest, best pitch I've ever received in my life. Please send me the script right away." And naturally, instead of doing what I should have done and said, "Well, I was joking, I have other stuff from years ago," I wrote the script in a weekend, sent it to him. He got back to me and said, "Yeah, this is not as good as the joke." And so I explained it, and he said, "Oh, okay. Do you have anything else? What do you do?" And I said, "Well, actually, looking for other kinds of work." And so he hired me to do notes for him. And that was the start of a career of being a reader and giving notes. And really have loved that since I've been doing it for, I guess, over 10 years now. I'm not going to say what studio this was. It wasn't Cinema Golden Films, so not going to besmirch their name. And they were looking at adapting a major intellectual property. And it was a major book series. And this particular company had quite a bit of commercial success. They won Academy Awards and everything. And so they were looking to really commit to doing this franchise. The Harry Potter movies were going, and so this was like, oh, well, this could be a mature book series that they would adapt in the fantasy realm. And so in that environment, what tends to happen is you have a lot of little vice presidents or creative executives, and they're all trying to find the person who's going to adapt this property because they didn't have anyone in mind. So everyone is looking for someone to adapt this seemingly unadaptable property. And full disclosure, another company later did adapt it, and people said, "You really shouldn't adapt this." But one day I'm sitting at my internship desk, typing up some notes as I do. And to my left, the president of the company is walking out of his office. And to my right, one of the vice presidents just bolts in front of me and flags down the president. He says, hey, I think we've got somebody to adapt that series. And the president asks, "Oh, great. I mean, is he any good?" And the vice president says, "Oh, yeah, he's crazy. He lived in the forest in a hole for like a year." To which the president said, "Jesus Christ, we got to bring him in here." And the reason I love that story so much, other than it's absurd, is that it perfectly encapsulates how producers view writers, which is they go, okay, are they just crazy enough to be creative enough for the project, but not too crazy that I can't control them? And apparently, Hole in the Woods was perfect for that project, that company, and that team. So again, archery and living in a hole in the woods, great career advice so far. I first got involved in the ISA by chance. Like in 2009, I always make career moves at the best possible time. So it was 2019, I think. So everyone was hiring. And I was just about to consider a position with someone else, but pandemic put a hold on that. And so I was looking for different reading opportunities. And I just happened to see that the ISA was hiring readers. And so threw my hat in the ring. Individual came back to me, said, "Oh yeah, you come right on." And the thing is, in between working in the industry and when I wasn't, I was doing a lot of different things. I was pre-med for a while, or post-baccalaureate pre-med, and I did, after I finished that program, I was part of this Google Next startup thing. And so I'm very familiar with forms and data and everything. So I was given an Excel sheet, and I didn't like the way it was formatted. And I didn't particularly like the, you know, I like to have guidelines, and I thought I could have more guidance. And so, despite the fact that I'd been hired that day, I just started saying, well, you could do this, with this sheet, and, you can tell me about this, and could we specify this? And what about if I did this? And so eventually I get an email saying, oh, it's interesting. And I thought this email was going to be, please stop. We don't even want to bother with you. You're too much. We're going to part ways. You're a hassle. And instead it was, oh, we're hiring. Why don't you get on a call with Craig and Molly? I'm like, I don't know who Craig and Molly are. But I scrambled to wash my hair and put on a nice shirt. And I think it's the only time you've ever seen me, the buttoned up shirt. Cause I don't know, I've been living in the South for a while. Yeah, and that's how I got hired. Well, now I oversee the ISA's reading team and all of our contests. So pretty much I oversee a contest from when it launches to the end of the judging process. So I look at all the reading team assignments. I send the scripts out to them. After after a contest has reached the completion of the scoring phase, we scored all the contests, I collect the quarterfinalists, and then I select the semifinalists and continue on to the finalists now and winner selection. I'm also, anyone who's ever got notes, got an email from me, because I'm the one who reads over all the notes, edits them, works with the readers to develop forms of criticism. That's something we do differently here, is that we actually try to develop our notes and our feedback to have underlying ideologies to everything that we do, so that people aren't just kind of coming onto the team like I was and going, okay, do I do this? Do I do this? And I've been on those teams elsewhere and for years in the past and never gotten that kind of guidance. And that's another big part of my job, is getting to know the readers, working with them. We care a lot about them. I care a lot about them, especially. And, we have calls with them. It's regular emails exchanges to see what's going on, in addition to all their assignment emails and little nitpicks I might have. They're very patient with me. And soon I'm going to be doing more with the development slate. So I'm looking forward to that. There's a kind of recurring theme. It happens 7 times in 1 week. We were meeting with an intern because part of the intern curriculum is that they meet with me and they do a test read that all of our readers do as well, and talk about forms of criticism, things like that, which is a delight, just as an aside. And we also talk about the industry, career advice, things like that. And the intern said how remarkable it was compared to the other internships they've done, the other things they've seen in the industry, how positive things were. They additionally, said that there just seemed to be this optimism about the industry, and people weren't looking at scripts with sort of this jaded attitude. And then I think the next day, we were congratulating one of the winners of a contest. And he specifically said, thank you for making it personal. And that is the ISA. It's a very human, emotional, empathetic approach to an industry that very often doesn't have those things. And we're able to provide that at all levels, not just when we're working with the writers, but when we're working with the readers, when we're working with each other. we care about how we make other people feel. And so that's by far my favorite part of working with the ISA. For various reasons, I've been going over the roster and looking at it and just sort of been surprised myself, the talent that we've managed to gather. We have people who are very young but growing very fast within the industry, and they bring that raw talent to other writers through their criticism and their notes and their insights in contest scripts as well. But we also have people who've been producers for decades, and we have people who've been behind the camera as directors. And they all are just incredibly wonderful people to work with. And it's my favorite thing every day is to know that I get to work with that team. And yeah, I don't mean to say I like them more than the ISA team. I love them both. But I can say that, I've assembled the reading team, and so that's where I take a lot of pride. The best advice I've ever gotten, and the one I say the most, is that writing should be its own reward. There are a lot of people we meet who've been on this journey for a long time, and they sort of forget, sadly, why they started writing in the first place, which is pretty much all those ways because they enjoy it. And writing should be something that, even if you don't become a successful screenwriter, or you do become a writer and you find some success, that's not why you're doing it. The very fact of creating something and then refining it should be its own reward. And that's something that you can take in your life in general. It's very easy nowadays to forget, why am I doing anything? What brings me joy? What brings me, to do this? What gives me purpose? But if you think about the fundamental reason of why you're doing something or why you're drawn to something, and you focus on a sense of awareness, it can lead you to find a joy that you might have lost during the difficult times, because sometimes it does need to be difficult for anything that you're doing. Or it can lead you to go, well, maybe there's something else that I want to be doing. Certainly for me, that's a case where I look at writing and I go, oh, that's interesting, but criticism is something where I could just do that. And I don't need to make money as a critic. I'm happy that I can. But I hope other people can pursue that kind of purity of purpose. Think about why you're doing this as a writer. Think about what ways you can approach writing in a way that will continue to give you satisfaction, fulfillment, joy. I would say to the younger people who are looking at this as a career and are in the very early stages of making job choices, sending out applications, looking at internships, do look at how it takes time, and it does take getting lucky just to get in to a development studio or a production team. And the reason why I was able to take that opportunity was because I was in Los Angeles. I was in an environment where I was going to make those contacts regularly. So while it was up to chance, I was able to sort of mitigate the odds. And a lot of people who do make it, they make it because they were able to stick with things. They went and they worked in a mailroom, or they worked in an agency as an assistant for a long time. And that allows them to have those opportunities to eventually transfer to something that maybe that they like more. So look at your career, look at your career path, and maybe make sure that you have one of those separate from writing, because that will also allow you to focus on writing as its own form of growth. I tell people there's opportunity, there's progress, and there's growth. A lot of people do get progress, and they get a lot of it. And they might not grow as people. And you might meet those people later in life and go, you succeeded really early, and golly, it doesn't seem like it's the best thing for you. Same thing with opportunity, is that you can get a lot of opportunities, but if you're not prepared professionally and personally to take advantage of them, it might not work out. So think about that. Think about those three things and how you're addressing all of them.
Scott, if Jeffrey says anything stupid, please edit it out. Thank you.
Well, I'm Jeffrey Ryan Morales. I am the story executive at the I. Let me. That's wrong.
I got you. Don't worry. Nobody sticks around for the post-credits stuff.